I do think that we need to have a customer revolution.
Hi everyone, welcome to our new talk. We have with us Amy Hall.
Amy, it's a good friend. It's an amazing, sustainable fashion, knowledgeable person. So that's why we invited her and we want to have her here in our talks today. Ciao, Amy.
Ciao, Niccolo and Niccolo. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Introduce a little bit of yourself.
I have been working at Eileen Fisher, women's clothing company, for 27 years now. Under me, with me, through me, that we started what we now call social consciousness and sustainability. This word sustainability is a really loaded word. We use the word sustainable and sustainability differently inside our own company, and we have misused it. For sure, over the years. And several years ago, we talked about wanting to become 100% sustainable. And as soon as those words came out of our mouths, we realized that was a mistake. It's impossible to become 100% sustainable. And so when we say that now, we have a different idea, and we really are referring to environmental issues and social issues and trying to do the best we can.
But you as a person, Amy, what is sustainability? How did you approach 20 and more years ago when you started that it was a word nobody talked about that?
The word sustainable or sustainability definitely wasn't something that we were using, 20, 25 years ago. So when I think about sustainability, I think about how do we make whatever it is, whether it's a piece of clothing, an iPhone, how do we make it in a way that is not only the least harmful to the environment, but is actually improving the health of the environment. We need to
make it better,
shift things so things get better. Yeah. And so that means net positive.
You really capture the concept of regenerative. It's not only try to make as less damage as possible, but is think about the future because we need to grow something better.
If you ever go camping, there's that old phrase, you want to leave the campsite better than when you arrive there. That means leave no trace, but also maybe plant a little seed while you're there so another flower grows. This idea is really kind of what drives me, what motivates me personally, not only in my work, but also in my life. What am I leaving behind? What's going to still be here 2 or 3 generations from now? How can I eliminate any trace of myself?
And how do you apply this concept to fashion?
With the technology we have today and with consumer habits and with the way business is set up, it's really impossible to approach everything with this kind of leave no trace perspective because the pace of the industry is too fast. We're making way more than people can possibly purchase, wear, and wear out. They wear it a few times and they move on to the next thing, but the thing that they were wearing is still perfectly good. And so they end up throwing it away, donating it, or whatever. There's just more and more piling up, more and more unwanted clothing piling up. The best we can do as a company is try to make things out of materials that could possibly compost or that can be upcycled or recycled into something new after its first wearing or second wearing, right? I mean, first life or second life. As an industry, that should be our goal, right? Is to always think about how to stretch out the life of a piece of clothing and how to encourage customers and consumers to actually buy less, which I know sounds a little weird, but to buy more thoughtfully.
More as my grandmother and my grandfather used to do it.
Exactly. So this house that I live in with my family was built in 1926, so it's almost 100 years old. In this room where I am right now is the only original closet in the house. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet. This used to be a bedroom, and can you imagine having all your clothes in a little tiny closet, 2 feet by 3 feet? But when the house was built in 1926, that's all you needed. We expanded our closet in our bedroom a couple of years ago, so now it's fully walk-in and it has all the shelves and everything. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but this is the culture we live in.
Tell us the biggest ESG issues in fashion that you're facing every day: environment, social, and governance.
25 years ago in this industry, the conversation was all about the people. So people would ask us, our customers would say, who made this clothing? How much were they paid? Were they paid fairly? What do the factories look like? Are they safe? I remember thinking back then how wonderful it would be if our customers started to ask us about the environmental issues, because I knew intuitively that there were chemicals and land issues and transportation issues inherent in the clothing. And I thought, as soon as a customer starts asking us about these issues, we're going to start shifting our practices. Well, they didn't really ask for years and years and years. They still just cared about the people. Nowadays, it seems like people really care a lot more about the environment. It's the chemistry that's used to dye the fabrics. It's where the fibers were grown and how they were grown. We forget that our clothing is agriculturally based. So there's water issues, carbon issues, biodiversity issues, animal issues, like for wool or cashmere or leather.
What about traceability? Do you think the customer today is keen to see traceability as a big issue in fashion?
Some customers care, most don't. When they do care, those who do care don't know where to go to get their information. They don't know who to trust to get their information. And I think that's a big problem. And when we as brands talk about traceability, I think there's confusion about traceability for what purpose and for whom. And so, we spend a lot of time putting out our factory lists on our website, but I don't think customers really are looking at that kind of stuff. Certifications provide some level of assurance, particularly for the customers. It gives you something, that it's been qualified by a third party entity. And certifications only are as good as the day that they were given, right? And there's a lot of fraud embedded in certifications. So, you have to kind of take them with a grain of salt. It's one piece of a full traceability package. So you can't just rely on the certifications alone.
It's a good starting point for the future. I have the feeling that if you don't have that, you really cannot sell a product.
I know people say that. And then I wonder, though, about this idea of trust. We all have our favorite brands, and they are brands that we trust. And why do we trust them? For the most part, we're not trusting them because they have certifications.
No,
Mostly we're trusting them because we agree with their values, we agree with the styles, with how they talk about their stuff on the internet, whatever. So it may be down the road that certifications lose importance. I wonder.
That sometimes certification, it's only a piece of paper in a day of the year. Where this piece of paper coming from and how was audited, it's always a big question mark. Do you think today sustainability, it's a marketing strategy or it's something that is real?
I do think it's a marketing strategy for sure. And I think that many companies are making honest efforts to become more sustainable, even though I really hate using that word. There's some genuine effort behind that word.
What words you would use instead of sustainable?
I do like the word regenerative.
Yes.
I do like the word impactful, but again, that is a word that can be misused. I also just simply like the word responsible.
Correct.
Are we taking responsibility for what we're doing?
Do you see fashion in the next 5 to 10 years becoming more responsible?
I do. I think that more and more brands are taking this seriously. I think customers are demanding it. Although I'm generally an optimist, in this particular case, I'm a bit of a cynic. I think that most brands will just do kind of the bare minimum to keep up, to kind of satisfy the people questioning them. Very few brands are going to go the extra mile to truly to make that positive, that net positive impact that I was talking about, to actually leave this world better than it was when they got here.
So I was wondering how much the customer can influence enough the brands to really make a change.
I do think that we need to have a customer revolution. There's some attempts at that. There's fashion revolution, which isn't so much about quantity, but it is at least about questioning, the origin of your clothing. There are some influencers out there that are actually doing some good stuff. There's one that I recently discovered, Inspiro.co. She's Canadian. And she talks about being very mindful about how much clothing she buys. And when she does spend money on a piece of clothing, it's something that she absolutely loves. The more followers people like that get, I think there's a fighting chance.
Do you think education is a part of the equation?
Being more educated does help. The first step in is just being aware of your choices and why you're choosing one type of product over another. You may still choose the one that's less responsible, but maybe you have a good reason for it. That awareness will start to kind of eat away at you and produce some guilt. And then that might influence, better purchasing decisions down the road. That happens for me.
Buy less, buy better, buy good, and always be informed about what you are getting.
We need to leave our world a better place than what we found.
Amy, is there a last thought that you want to share with us?
Is this word of responsibility, and as a brand, how do we take full responsibility for the garments or after they've left our stores? How do we take responsibility for the waste? How do we think about responsibility in this idea of leave no trace? You know, we have all these archaeologists in the world who go digging for evidence of past cultures. They very rarely find a piece of clothing. That would be my wish for us, is our clothing, we throw it away or we donate it, but eventually it goes away, it goes into the landfill. And I want it to be able to disintegrate and nourish the earth and become soil and feed the little bugs and start over again and grow new fibers. And 100, 200, 300 years from now, people wouldn't find any old clothing in our landfills because we've taken good care of it. So that would be my hope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.